Hey everyone, Matt Hunter here, your host for Anarchist Revolution. So I'm watching the news, MSNBC, the mainstream propaganda, White House media outlet, basically talking heads. I'm watching these guys cover these shooting issues, in particular the Las Vegas one where the couple there target the police officers. So I'm listening to it, I'm watching it, and I'm yelling at my TV. Every time they say something stupid, I'm just yelling at my TV about how much propaganda it is. And I was like, well, you know what? I might as well pick up the camera and record it and, listen to this together and touch on some points and what I find is so absurd and point you guys and show you guys that instead of the media just coming out and saying, hey, here's these two people who shot cops, terrible, tragic, but they specifically push an agenda, and I'm going to outline that for you guys in this video. So let's start it off and listen to it together.
Now to that shocking murder-suicide in Las Vegas that left 5 people dead, including 2 police officers. The shooting began at a pizza restaurant just before noon on Sunday. A man and a woman ambushed 2 veteran police officers having lunch. Both officers were shot at point-blank range. Next witnesses say the suspects took the police officers' guns and ammunition and walked across the street. Just inside the front door of a Walmart, they killed another man. Witnesses say the couple were yelling about revolution.
They were screaming there's a revolution has begun and, get out the store.
At first I heard a couple like a firecracker type of sound, so we all ducked down behind machinery. The next thing I know, right behind me, the shooter had a bigger caliber gun and kept shooting and shooting and shooting, hollering about freedom.
As officers rushed in, there was a brief gun battle before, according to police, the woman shot the man, then turned the gun on herself. And today we're learning more on the background of the alleged shooters. The couple are husband and wife, Jared and Amanda Miller. They draped the Gadsden flag on the bodies of the officers, a flag that's a symbol for the Tea Party movement that reads, "Don't tread on me." They also threw
that's the terrible flag right there.
Of one police officer's body, and they supported the lawless agenda of the lawless Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy.
So there you go. They're already throwing in their little two-piece of the lawless Cliven Bundy. Now, if you guys are obviously following the Cliven Bundy situation, it's a rancher who refuses to pay his grazing fees to the government. And I thought the people own the land, so why the hell is the government saying you got to pay this? It's basically the government's the mafia saying, hey, you want to use the land, that's a nice business you got there. You don't want to see any broken windows, you better pay up. That's what the government is. They're the mafia. Cliven Bundy has the right to graze on those lands. They're public lands. They're used for the people. The people in Nevada don't have a problem with it, or there'd be a whole bunch of people out there around Bundy's ranch protesting what he's doing. But clearly there's not. There's protesters there supporting him. And how common law land works, if it's not being used, it can be used for the common good. Cliven Bundy, he's using it, so that's why he's grazing it on it. He has the right to graze on it because he's actually using the land. If it is public land, so if someone from Nevada wanted to build a house on a chunk of that land, then sure, now you're using that land and that chunk that you built your house on, that is now your property because you have created something of worth on it. Okay, so the government, Bundy don't owe you shit. So let's continue here with the propaganda.
The video you see here is Jared at the ranch back in April. The couple was also known to dress up as Batman characters, the Joker and Harley Quinn.
Now, the only reason they even mentioned that they were at the Cliven Bundy protest, which they weren't there for that long, the Cliven Bundy people and the militia kicked them out because they obviously didn't agree with them on some of their principles and their back history and stuff like that. But they're just trying to bulk it in like, oh, anyone that was at the Bundy Ranch situation may be potentially a cop killer. So they're just trying to set you up for that propaganda.
In his last Facebook post before Sunday's fatal shooting, Jared wrote, quote, "The dawn of a new day, may all of our coming sacrifices be worth it." Joining me now is NBC's Jay Gray, who's in front of that Walmart in Las Vegas, and Heidi Byrick of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Jay, Jay Gray, let me go to you. What can you tell us about this couple? What are police saying?
Yeah, let's start with what you were talking about initially, Reverend Sharpton. It started in a pizza restaurant just around the corner from where we're standing right now. Ended up in the Walmart just behind me. 5 people dead, including that young couple, the Millers. And police saying today that they have little question this killing spree was motivated by their, quote, anti-government and racist beliefs. This is something...
Okay, stop it right there. So I was screaming at the TV when I heard this. So it was motivated by racism and anti-police. Well, I can agree with you on the anti-police thing, but racism, they shot white police officers. So how the hell are they white supremacists? You think they would shoot a black person then if they're racist, not white people. Makes no sense. Oh, but everything MSNBC pushes, it's got to be racism.
That they had talked about since moving here to Las Vegas in January, the apartment they were living in at the time of the shooting. They had been there since February, and neighbors there said they were quiet, rather reserved, but when they did speak, they spoke about hating the government, wanting to kill police officers, and that they routinely walked around with guns drawn, with guns out in the open here. We know that Jared did...
Wait a minute, walking around everywhere with their guns drawn? Well, you just can't walk around with your gun drawn. Maybe if it was on their back or, they're doing exercise in their Second Amendment right to open carry and stuff. But, like, they're branding it saying, like, oh, they're walking around with their guns held out. Let's continue to listen.
To have some problems with the law before, convicted felon. One of those crimes, auto theft in Washington State. And you talked about his time on the Bundy Ranch. I can tell you this. He was kicked out by the militia there because they had problems with his beliefs and his criminal background, Reverend Sharpton. So didn't even fit in there and came to Las Vegas following that.
Now let me follow up with that. Jared went to the Clive and Bundy Ranch and was interviewed by a local NBC reporter. Watch this.
I feel sorry for any federal agents that want to come in here and try to push us around or anything like that. I really don't want violence toward them, but if they're going to come bring violence to us, well, if that's the language they want to speak, we'll learn it.
Now, Heidi, obviously you can't say everybody at the Bundy Ranch is going to be an alleged murderer, but it's interesting to see Jared.
So there you go, he set you up. He's like I just said, that, oh, we obviously can't say everyone at the Bundy Ranch is a murderer, but, okay, so let's listen to the but.
Yeah, what does this tell you about this movement?
This movement, so to bulk all of us into one.
Look, this movement's rhetoric is so...
Go ahead, Heidi.
This movement's rhetoric is so extreme in terms of hatred of police, federal officials, the entire government apparatus, the Obama administration, etc.
Yeah, the movement that posts stuff, the police brutality all the time. You're goddamn right they're fed up with the police. They're fed up with police officers violating people's rights, beating people up, killing people, killing their dogs. We're fed up with police officers jailing and harassing people for victimless crimes. You're fucking right, we're fed up with that. Continue.
And it's not surprising to see somebody like that, like Miller, making these basic threats towards law enforcement. This is where this rhetoric leads to hatred of all those kinds of officials and all.
Okay, so right away, she's saying if you post anti-police stuff, if you post anti-government stuff, if you point out the horse in the room that police officers, by their own statistics, are 8 times more likely to kill you than you are to kill them. If by their own statistics, they're 8 times more likely to police to kill you than you are by terrorists. By their own admission, they jail people for victimless crimes, whether it's little speeding tickets, traffic tickets, your vehicle light out. Stupid little things, possession of a substance. So victimless crimes and all these other bullshit things. So if you point out the facts, you're a cop killer. So let's continue to listen.
And violence.
Now, NBC News caught up with Miller's neighbor today. Listen to what he had to say.
After the Bundy thing going on over there, they went over there for a couple of days, and then they come back, and I guess after that, Jared became anti-government, anti-police. He was talking about killing cops. He didn't want nothing to do with the government. He had his wife quit her job that she's had for a while, and hell, he wouldn't even let her collect unemployment or food stamps or anything.
So this is, Jay, part of the picture you were painting for us, that the neighbors and others were saying that they were really anti-government when they would speak, even to the point of he had his wife quit her job.
Yeah,
Anti-government. So if you're anti-theft, if you're anti-aggressors, if you're anti-being ruled by a ruling class, if you're anti what all the things that government produces, wars and poverty and all this other bullshit, you're a cop killer. See how they try and balk it in this?
Reverend Sharpton, I think it's important to point out here that police today said they are looking into the idea that the only reason this couple was here is because they didn't fit in at the Bundy Ranch and they were looking for a place to land. They also say that they are studying the idea that people of the same bent, of the same mindset, are moving into this area, leaving the Bundy Ranch and populating this area. It's something they're taking very seriously.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this, Heidi. Jared Miller's Facebook posts are chilling. On May 2nd, he wrote, quote, "I will willingly die for liberty." He talked...
Oh, so they think I will willingly die for liberty, and this guy's Facebook, just like they said with Justin Bork, oh, his Facebook was shocking. He posted anti-police things, and, you know, we're not posting anti-police, we're posting facts, you know. If police didn't kill as many people as people kill police officers, if police officers didn't cage people for victimless crimes, if police officers didn't commit all these crimes against humanity, didn't brutalize people, we wouldn't have nothing to post. We are posting the facts. So if you don't want these things to be talked about, police officers, stop committing crimes.
About ways to die for liberty, quote, "Most notably is the suicide by cop routine." Later that month, he posted, quote, "About time to start killing cops." This is on his Facebook page. And just days before the shooting, he posted, quote, "To stop this oppression, I fear can only be accomplished with bloodshed." I mean, did police talk about this further? Is there any concern that it wasn't flagged here, Heidi, if these are things posted on a Facebook page?
Yeah, I mean, I have some, real concerns about the amount of attention that's being paid to people in this movement and to that kind of openly hostile rhetoric, because he was, to some extent, sort of advertising what he wanted to do. That's also true according to neighbors in terms of what he said.
But do you think authorities are not taking these kinds of things seriously enough, these hate groups seriously enough? I mean, to have these kinds of postings, several of them on the Facebook page, so a red flag should have gone off somewhere.
So what they're setting up to do here, and what their propaganda and their agenda they're pushing is, so that they're activists like me and you out there who are just posting honest journalism, posting the facts, posting that you are more likely to be killed by a cop, posting that the government is the #1 threat to society. Our founding fathers even told us that the #1 threat to the people is a government. Just bringing facts and basic journalism. What they're trying to do is demonize people like us and get our neighbors and get people that see profiles like ours to immediately call the cops and say, this guy fits your profile. He could potentially be a future cop killer. And, get them a reason now to start investigating you, to start harassing you, to maybe try and stifle your journalism and your free speech. So they're just getting you ready for this propaganda and this agenda so they can stifle any kind of a real journalism out there and try and control the message and control the social media platforms from putting out these truth facts that government's the #1 threat to the people, not other way around. Let's continue.
I would say basically since 2009
that his neighborhood wasn't paying attention, and police say that that's a big problem here. The whole "See It, Say It" campaign.
The whole "See It, Say It" campaign. His neighbor weren't paying attention. So what this whole is setting people up for getting neighbors to rat on other neighbors. So here I got a Goodson flag behind me. Maybe if I had a Goodson flag flying out on my front porch or on my front lawn, this type of stuff who feed into this MSNBC propaganda, I could get a neighbor who would call the cops and he has a Goodson flag, so he might be a potential terrorist or cop killer. And this is just to spur up fear and propaganda and make neighbors try and rat on each other and call the cops on any kind of activism or any kind of journalism that are anti-police and anti-government.
Something that this couple had been talking about for a long time, and neighbors today, a day after the shooting, are saying, we heard it, we didn't take it seriously, we thought he was just talking, he had been talking like this and carrying guns for a long time.
But Heidi, I think that the government also, my question to you is the government taking a lot of these groups seriously by monitoring something as simple as Facebook pages and postings? It was pretty clear what this guy was posting.
So here, Reverend's setting us up so that he's telling the public that we, activists and journalism like this, the people that post stuff like us, we should be watched and tracked, and giving further an excuse and reason why we need things like the NSA and those groups monitoring our websites and stuff like that. And you know what? It's pre-crime. No one could tell what this guy was was thinking in his head. No one knew that he was just going to decide to go on a rampage like that. How are us activists only going to know this? Only the people in his personal and surrounding him in his personal life would truly know his own character. So to think that we should know his mindset from his Facebook posts, it's too hard to tell, and it's his First Amendment right. At that point in time, he didn't commit a crime, so you're going to try and demonize people for posting hate rhetoric and stuff like that. I don't like hate rhetoric and racial slurs and all these kinds of attacks that go online too, but people have a right to say what they want to say, and if you want the right to be able to say that they can't say those things, you have to also grant them the right to say those things, because you're exercising your First Amendment rights, so you need to grant them the right to do the same. Let's continue.
Yeah, look, the fact of the matter is that in 2009, the Department of Homeland Security warned that we were going to see more right-wing terrorist attacks, and they put out a report that was roundly criticized by conservative media and pulled, and they shut down their intel division at that time. So until recently, no, the government has spent most of its time worried about Islamic extremism and very little on white supremacist and sort of militia extremists like the Millers. So no, and the government needs to take this seriously. These kinds of people have killed more Americans domestically than Islamic extremists in the last several years. This is a serious threat, and the government has to be looking at these things.
Well, all right, so I'm going to end it right there with that. Before I get sick, I can't watch anymore. So like she said, these government, anti-government militia groups and hate groups and right-wing hate groups, they have responsible for way more deaths and should be taken serious than this and that. And listen, government's responsible for more deaths than anything. Police are responsible for more deaths of civilians by FBI's own statistics. So if you want to push your propaganda and rhetoric that we should fear anti-government groups and we should fear people who hate the police, then, shove their propaganda in their face and throw them the facts and say, okay, well, if you guys are worried about these two guys that killed a few cops, how about the thousands and thousands of civilians that have been killed by cops? Then if you go by that, we should be fucking scared shitless anytime we get pulled over by a police officer then, because we're going to get a bullet in our head. So don't believe through the propaganda. While this shooting was going on, there was also other kind of shootings going on in other cities, whether it was gangbangers is the most related gun violence situation. So, why didn't they jump on that and say, the gangsters were shooting each other, so, make it racism? And no, they pick and choose which stories to cover to push their propaganda, and this whole news story was just about demonizing activism, to squash journalism, to squash any kind of truthful facts to be discussed in society, and pointing out who the real threat is. So if she thinks that the real concern is right-wing extremists who have killed probably a handful of people in the last 100 years, she got to get her facts straight, considering government has killed hundreds of millions of people in the last century. Don't believe this bullshit. Stop feeding into the mainstream media. MSNBC, you suck. You're dinosaur media, and we're taking over. Anarchist Revolution, signing off.